With us now is Republican Congressman Darren LaHood from Illinois. Sir, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be with you, Brianna.
So we're watching this, Ford hiking prices because of tariffs. Are you worried? Because I know you have these auto jobs in your district that are supposed to come back online here. Does this concern you?
Well, I think anytime you have a raising of costs for vehicles, you should be concerned. But as President Trump said when he announced his tariff policy, there was going to be some short-term pain economically, and I think we're seeing that. But Brianna, I don't think we can continue to go down this path of allowing countries, particularly China and others, to take advantage of our U.S. market. And I think what President Trump is trying to do through his policies is to right many of the wrongs that have been done in the trade space and bring back some of those core manufacturing jobs to the United States. And so I think we have to give him the ability to negotiate a number of these trade deals. As you saw, there was a pause for 90 days with a number of the tariffs. And now President Trump's trade team, which I have a lot of confidence in, Ambassador Greer, Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lubnick, they're engaged in these trade negotiations. So let's see what those results are. And then lastly, I think it's positive news that U.S. trade officials will be meeting with the Chinese this weekend in Switzerland to talk about a de-escalation with China.
Yeah, pause on those so-called reciprocal tariffs, but you still have these 10% tariffs in place, and that is nothing to sneeze at, right? That's pretty big here. So we're talking about these Ford cars, which are made in Mexico, but Ford isn't even passing on. We talk about that $600 to $2,000 per vehicle. That's not even the full cost. They're saying they're not even passing on the full cost of the tariff. So it really does become a bottom line issue for the automakers. They're absorbing the costs. You have this idled Stellantis plant in your district, which was widely reported that the reopening of the plant was delayed because of sales and profits tumbling. So if sales and profits tumble from tariffs, could you be looking at those jobs being further delayed?
Well, I don't think so. I think when you look at what we're going to do in the reconciliation bill, I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, and making the tax cuts permanent from 2017 and the other changes we're going to make in the tax bill, I think are going to give rocket fuel to the economy. We saw what happened in 2017, Brianna, when we passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It created the best economy in our lifetime. So I think, again, I think there'll be some short-term pain because of the tariffs. But if you couple that with a tax bill and reconciliation bill that gets energy production at an all-time high in this country, which we'll have in there, recalibrates the regulatory environment and brings permanent tax relief to the American people, I think that will help offset that. I would also note too, Brianna, look at the record amount of investment in this country, even through the tariff regime, whether it's NVIDIA making their announcement, TSMC, also Johnson & Johnson, OpenAI. I mean, these are investments. Apple making significant investments with large amounts of money in the country because of President Trump and his policies.
You mentioned the talks between the U.S. and China and Switzerland, the first that we've seen. So this is going to be a very big focus. Talk to us about how critical those talks are. When you're talking about short-term pain, how long can Americans go without a deal between the U.S. and China?
Well, I would just say this. Tariffs need to be used in a strategic and tactical way to go after bad actors. And you look at what China has done. They continue to steal our intellectual property. They play by a different set of rules and standards than every other industrialized country in the world. They engage in wolf warrior diplomacy. The fentanyl issue has not been resolved. They've doubled down on authoritarianism. Their provocation in the South China Sea is unacceptable. And so how do you stop that behavior? I think what President Trump has appropriately done is he's raised these tariffs because their behavior is unacceptable. Brianna, look at when we allowed China into the World Trade Organization roughly 22 years ago. The argument at the time was bring China into the WTO and they're going to reform, they're going to liberalize, they're going to become more like us. None of that happened. In fact, the opposite happened. They've taken advantage of our system, they've manipulated the World Trade Organization, and President Trump has said enough is enough. So again, I think there will be ramifications of the tariffs, but I think most Americans want to win the strategic competition against China and beat the Chinese, and we need an even playing field. I think these negotiations are the step in the right direction, but we'll have to see what the result is.
Most Americans, want to get through the week, right, and be solvent if they can. And we've seen time and again in politics that is the top priority for voters. So how long do you think they will tolerate this? Because I hear you talking about strategic goals, and some of them may agree with you on that, but if they can't get the things they need for their family, that is something that they don't have the luxury of desiring over some of these things that they need. So what do you think, what is the timeline that you're looking at? Because you're talking about short-term pain, but really, what is it for people that you think they can endure?
Well, first of all, I think most Americans that I represent, my constituents, they're very patriotic. They do want to win the strategic competition against China, and they're sick and tired of them taking advantage of that. Secondarily, President Trump was elected partly on the economy. And as we look at the reconciliation bill, his tax plan, what we're going to put forth, what we're going to end up passing in the House, again, is going to bring relief to the American people, help bring down inflation, help bring down costs, get back to energy and independence.
Sir, they may not have that much time. So when you're thinking, how much time? And why is it hard to commit to an idea on a timeline?
Well, the timeline I would give you is the reconciliation bill is going to be brought forth to the House here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to get it over to the Senate, and we're hopefully going to get it passed into law within the next 4 to 6 weeks. I think that will happen very quickly and
when
get
does
that
that
signed into law.
And the effect of that on Americans and their bottom line when they actually see money is?
Well, I think what you'll see is a reduction in inflation. There is a tremendous amount of money sitting on the sidelines in this country waiting for predictability and certainty. That's what they want in the economy, for short and long-term investments, whether you're a farmer, a small or medium manufacturer, or a business person. President Trump's tax plan and our plan in the Congress is going to bring that predictability and certainty. Remember, Brianna, if we do nothing this year, we're going to have $4.5 trillion of tax increases by the end of the year. So listen, I think people are anxious and nervous appropriately, but we're about ready to change that with our reconciliation bill.
All right, we'll be watching to see what happens. Congressman Darren LaHood, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Brianna.